It's the Lean Into Artcast, a show where a couple of visual storytellers get together and take on various topics that tend to bubble up when one embarks on this endeavor of communicating visually. We think hard about this stuff, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Drozd. I am a cartoonist and teaching artist, and the other host is...
Hello, I'm Rob Stenzinger, a user experience designer, and I also make video games.
Happy New Year, Rob.
Happy New Year, Jerzy.
Happy New Year to all the leaners tuning in. Tuning in. Is that phrase? I guess we know what it means. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We didn't say dialing up.
Clicking on. Logging on. Remember when we used to say that all the time?
Yeah, surfing the internet. The information superhighway.
Superhighway. Cyberspace.
Superhighway.
Yeah, it's funny that that language did not persist, did it? You know, we still say tuning in, but we don't say, oh, I'm going to go log on to the internet and cruise on the information superhighway.
Yeah, funny, huh? I suppose it's tune in. What do you do? What do you do to a stream? You hop on a stream? Well, I know a regular stream. You meet a stream on along your path. You can hop in a stream, but I don't know. That doesn't sound right.
I don't know. If anybody could help us with this, what is the language for checking out a stream, a live stream?
Can turn it into a verb. You emphasize the verb. It's stream, right? I'm going to stream that cast.
Yes. Thanks to all of you for streaming today. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
We came to at least somewhat of a reasonable conclusion to that. So New Year. This show is where the general premise is that a game designer and a cartoonist get together, talk about different kinds of challenges that they face as visual storytellers, sort of the art and philosophy and practice of communicating with images. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing. We closed out the year with a lot of episodes on journaling, planning, thinking about projects, and I thought to start off 2019. It would be fun to do one where we do a little bit of actual drawing on the screen, take advantage of the live stream aspect of this, and the fact that it's a video and audio podcast. So if you're listening via audio, if you're listening to through a podcatcher, we'll do our best to describe what we're seeing. But this is going to be one of those ones where really the best experience is going to be the YouTube video. So
I don't know. Don't say that. Maybe we're going to really do our best to do some theater of the mind. Render those lines in your brain space. In your brain superhighway.
Yes, yes, this will be good practice for us of doing that too.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that I was watching Greg Schiegel's really terrific video series, Stuff Sketched, which is on YouTube. Link to it in the show notes. Mm-hmm. That refers to his podcast he does called Stuff Said, which is a reference to the famous Marvel Comics line, Nuff Said. There we go. And he did an episode recently where he took a drawing from his childhood and redesigned the characters, like sort of just updated the drawing. I don't think he did much to redesign the characters. He just sort of did an updated version to sort of demonstrate the idea of artistic progression. It's something that happens if you sit down and do it enough, But it also reminded me of how recently I started attempting some redesigns of some characters for an upcoming Boulder and Fleet short story that I want to do. And I thought, hey, Rob, why don't we do some of this iteration of these character designs live on the show? And you said...
What now? What's this? Yeah. No, it's great. It's because you sent the link to Greg Schiegel's video, and I thought, that is a lot of fun. This is it's neat to hear like what people are thinking and why as they go along, and then honestly, video drawing demos are fun. I mean, I know you've done a lot of this kind of recording of you doing both physical drawings and posting it to YouTube, where you have like a camera hovering over your desk somehow, and then also screen recording. And I've done a few of those screen recordings too.
So do you want to dive in and do it?
That's what we're here for.
Okay. Well, I mean, actually, I know what everybody's really here for. They're here for this. That music is the signal. That music and that dancing. See, that's why you log into the stream.
That's right.
Well, that's why you fire up the stream so you can see that.
That's why you stream that highway.
That's the signal that we're now into the show. And so we elected for me to go first, so I'm going to start screen sharing. And I'm going to present to everybody. So now, here we go. I am working in Clip Studio Paint, and I decided that I was going to try a first attempt at redesigning. Oh, you know what? I should mention. This is a character that I created in 1994, who has been iterated upon several times.
Yeah, wow. That does not look like a 1994 image, the reference.
No, so this version is from, I want to say, 2010, 2011. But he's a character from a graphic novel that I created back in like 2007 called The Front Rebirth, which you can still find at indieplanet.com if you really want. Thefront.me is a website where all the archives are. And he's a character named Torpedo Black, which is he's right there on the cover. And what his deal is in the story, there he is in the back, is he's kind of like this goofball mercenary who, but not like Deadpool. He's not savvy and cool at all. He's more of like annoying kid brother kind of mercenary. And his whole thing is that he has these plates of metal on his back, and when he flies, he can combine all the plates by putting his arms forward in a flying position, and he becomes a human battering ram. That was the whole thing about him. So now I will pull up my drawing that I. This is a drawing that I did. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Well, I'm curious. So you chose. So you explained a bit of, not quite all the way about. You explained about the character. I'm curious. Well, two things. Like, why this character, and also why Clip Studio Paint?
Clip Studio Paint because I really enjoy drawing in this application. It's what I've been using as my primary professional art tool for the past 5 or 6 years now. Also, it's a lot easier for me to do a video stream of drawing in this than if I were to put a camera over my shoulder. It's hard to find a good placement for the camera and to get the good lighting and everything. And then plus my hands get in the way when you're watching somebody. It's really hard to find the right position where my hands won't obscure the drawing. This way, you can't see my hands, which is pro and con. Now, with this character, one of the things I'm thinking about doing is taking the 4 mercenaries from the Front Rebirth and importing them into the Boulder and Fleet universe. And now, while 2 of the mercenaries are monsters, so they could just be copied right in wholesale. I don't need to redesign them all that much. The 2 human mercenaries cannot exist as they currently have been designed, right there, because they are not animals. There are no humans in the Boulder and Fleet world. It's all talking animal universe. So I did some searching.
That. I thought it was just coincidence so far.
Oh, no, it's yeah. What am I trying to say? I decided a long time ago that like it's a full animal world and all the limitations that brings with regard to characters. But yeah, which I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know if I have a lot to say about like the reasons why. It's just that I like drawing animals a lot.
Yeah, there doesn't have to be like a super deep world rationality, but it sounds like personified, anthropomorphized animals, but like it sounds like you're saying within some limit. Where are you finding that those design constraints?
Well, so there's some characters in some unfinished Boulder and Fleet pitches that I was working on where they are humanoid, and they are definitely like a magical creature, but they don't have like a person face or anything like that. But they have like 2 arms, 2 legs, and like a roughly human build. And so the trick is when I start designing characters who look like that, I'm like, okay, well, how can I make sure that I can lend an otherworldliness to this character so that we say otherworldly the way the animal characters would say otherworldly. Does that make sense? Because like these people would never have seen a human. So if they saw somebody walking around like a human, it'd be weird. And so I think about that a little bit as like a design problem to solve in this. So what I did for this design, for in prep for this design, is I found a recent drawing I did of Torpedo Black, and this is actually, he's wearing yellow because this was for an unfinished story that I actually thumbnailed all the way through. It's been written, but I just never finished it, where we actually learn how he became Torpedo Black. And he was originally called Torpedo Yellow, and he was part of a team called the Dread Torpedoes. And Torpedo Black was a different person. That's why he's dressed in yellow there. But then I did a quick internet search for fast birds, and like the peregrine falcon ranked as one of the very fastest. I'm like, well, he shouldn't be too fast. He should be like pretty fast, but not the fastest. So then I found some images of a bird called the common swift, and I thought, okay, he's not the fastest in the world, but he's fast. And look at him; he's all streamlined. He's like a little tiny bird torpedo. So I thought, perfect. I will start with that for this design. So now I'm going to it, and I'm starting to just sketch out the bird. But I'm going to try to incorporate these elements, these metallic plates, because that was like the signature feature of his powers.
Well, sure. I notice you started right away with goggles. So you went with a like an anatomically representative bird, right? But then, boom, there's goggles, and now there's like this whooshy feather, but hair-like feathers, right?
Right. I'm gonna tuft his feather hair a little bit, so
Floofy, like the character's hairstyle,
right? To call back to that, at least for me. But then, how am I gonna do?
Well, there's personality there too, right? I mean, I guess it looks like there's a little bit of a bouncy boldness, but also it's not too highly kept and stylized, right? And
right, yeah.
Like this is someone who's maybe used to having the wind in their hair, but not necessarily trying to fully manage that away, right? Their hair stays fluffed. It's not like, oh, I need to slick it down or something. There could be other ways where that character would deal with that, and it's cool to see.
Another element to this challenge that I'm gonna have to face right now, and I actually already did one of the mercenaries. I redesigned one of the mercenaries and posted them on my Patreon. If anybody wants to go to patreon.com/Jerzy, they'll see. But another feature,
patreon.com/Jerzy, by supporting Jerzy, actually, at the pickles level or something, you get access to that podcast, right?
Oh yeah. So like Team Pickles, which is like the $3, I think a $3 level.
Yeah.
You get access to the Fabulous Secrets microcast.
Really good podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Worth mentioning.
Kind of you.
So you have some so now it's almost like there's armor appearing on the bird's wings.
Well, I'm thinking about like if he does a dive, like if he dives, the wings go forward like this. Here's his beak. We're looking at his tummy, right? If he does this, he could create that same shape that the original Torpedo Black had, right? But that would require plates to move in such a way where it'd be the triangle part above his head, straight line, there'd be the wings following this pattern. And it looks like the Fall Guy logo now.
Yeah, or the Pontiac Firebird?
In a way.
Yeah, I mean, not the same, right? But like, there's something evocative about a bird with its wings like that. Kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes, but except in this case, it's diving.
Yeah, so I like the idea of like him being like this, cute little bird with metal on his back, and then when he like dive bombs you, he can actually, do some damage. So this would be all right. But what that's gonna mean is that he's got these big plates of metal on his wings, and that seems counterintuitive to a flying creature. But then again, it is fantasy. I don't know.
Well, does it have to be metal? Like what
That's a
level
good point.
of technology are we dealing with here? Special bird polymer, bird tech?
Well, I'm kind of opting on the Masters of the Universe model where it's like science and super sorcery can exist in the same space,
Ooh.
but I don't want to go too science fiction because, yeah, if you did wood, right? What would that look like?
Like a hardwood?
Yeah, like what if you
Oh.
had like mahogany? What were you gonna say, Rob?
Well, yeah, interesting. You made some extra lines on the top of the wing, but maybe that was underdrawing. But it actually reminded me of how a wood could have an ornate carving on it. I don't know if
Would
that's
torpedo
appropriate,
black
but
have? Yeah, 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 yeah,
like
yeah.
inlay.
Yeah, yeah. Like, what if he did? So we did something like what would a arrogant, loudmouth bird battering ram have as far as a carving, right? Oh, it could be like all like drawings of him being awesome, right? Like if he's
Oh,
like,
telling his own bird story of
yeah,
this is what I do.
like you saw Moana, right? Like Maui had all
Yes.
those tattoos of all of his accomplishments, right? But these would be accomplishments that he never made, but he just like put them on there or had them commissioned because he probably wouldn't make them himself. Uh, so you could talk about like, well, here's the proof. Look on these babies right here. It flips over his wing. That never happened. Did so too. Something like that. Yeah.
Ha. Okay. So yeah. So I see a scene. It's almost like. Uh, so is it torpedo for short? Or
Sure.
all right.
Yeah, his original name was Torpedo, but
Uh-huh.
I changed it to Torpedo Black in 2003 because I realized, I could get into some kind of like trademark problems because Torpedo is a character name used for a lot of Hasbro properties.
Okay.
Uh,
What else?
so
Okay.
okay,
All
so
right.
let me.
You're, no,
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was going to turn the opacity down on this now, and I was just going to go in and like tighten this up just a touch with some regular black lines, and get my first draft of this character done before we go to our break.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're removing some ambiguity from the underdrawing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what kinds of things are you thinking about related to how like the shape of things are communicating?
So yeah, I mean, like we haven't talked about this on the show in a while, but it's like this is one of the basic premises of the comics classes I teach is that shape, size, line, and color are the four fundamental tools of cartooning. And so I'm thinking about I want this guy to be dynamic and I want him to look dangerous, but I also want him to look goofy. I want him to look like he's not that threatening, right? He looks like if he shows up, you'll be like, "Oh, this guy again. He's gonna make a mess." But you don't feel like, "Oh God, he's gonna hurt me," right? Do you see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
He's more of a hassle than a threat. And so I'm intentionally trying to find ways to round out these shapes a little bit as I get to working on those different wooden planks. And yes, there's a point here because he is dangerous and dynamic, but he's not Darth Vader, right? He's Biff Tannen from Back to the Future.
Okay. So, yeah. So he might knock over your mailbox, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And
like,
that was the key to the character for me is that he has the power to do much worse, but his imagination is so poor, and he's so concerned with like just being a cool guy that he can't achieve his full potential. We've known people like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so who? Okay, so wait a minute. So who is it? Just everybody that this torpedo bird wants to impress, or is it someone in particular?
Yeah, it would be his coworkers. So like
Okay.
I remember writing in my notes when I was first creating this or like redesigning this character for the 2003 comic. I said he's like the annoying coworker who, isn't that great at his job. When he's a mercenary, he's like a psychopath, Like when he's actually on a mission, he's like a psychopath. But then as soon as he's not, he's like that annoying guy by the water cooler.
Okay. So yeah, on a mission psychopath, but still not scary.
But not scary.
Okay.
Right.
That's cool. And I see the so having the bird sort of has it's so torpedo's beak is open, almost like a just the it's like a I think that takes away a lot of like potential like threat. The combination of the sort of the shine in the eyes of the goggles, right? And the open hey
Right.
or ha
Like it would be
ha. Yeah.
like we could do very different goggles, right? Give him some Black Manta eyes.
Oh yeah.
The new Aquaman movie,
Yep,
which I haven't seen. Right. Like that's going to change the look altogether. Or I could do it to where in some early concepts of the character, I thought, well, what if I just changed to sunglasses, right? Like, well, see, that gives off a completely different vibe than these big round goggles, right? So yeah, like shapes are pretty important to communicating your meaning. See, how much time I got? Okay, I want to make sure that I get this done in time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you got a few minutes. Let's see. Now, yeah, I mean, your reason for this, it really sounds like it helps this character fit into, just come from one story world into another, and but like now live up to the rules, like somehow honor the character, but then live up to the new rules of this other place. The let's see. Do you think that so the original work? I mean, is it targeted at the same kind of audience that the new work is targeted at? So, yeah. So the front versus Boulder and Fleet.
You mean like about how the audience has changed?
Yeah, I mean,
Has the audience changed?
Is it a different audience or like, and if it changed,
Well,
like, is it
yeah,
a lot or
I would
little?
a little. I would say that the front rebirth. I thought at the time it was a kid's book, but looking back, I don't think it holds up as a kid's book anymore. I think it would definitely be teen or a little older. There's assumptions that I was operating out of that I think are not. I don't agree with anymore. And there was characters smoke in the story, like when I started the book, like in Marvel Comics, Wolverine still smoked, the Thing smoked, and like I just it seemed like the norm was it was still not considered, you weren't allowed to do it inside anymore, right? It wasn't like you go to the grocery store and people are smoking while they're shopping like they were in like the late 70s. But it still wasn't quite as it didn't feel like as much of a taboo as it really does now. I don't feel comfortable having heroes smoking in my stories anymore. Things like that. Like Dick Courage, one of the mercenaries, smoked in the comic, and I feel like even that I'm not so crazy about. So anyway, I feel like the book is it requires some context that I don't think my Boulder and Fleet stories require, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So an evolution, sort of a maybe originally intended to be very similar audience, but then I guess as it turns out, a little different.
Yeah. So now we get to another problem of the design that I didn't address, is that I need to introduce some kind of harness onto this guy because I don't want him to be pure science fiction, especially now that we've made his panels out of wood, which I am so grateful to you, Rob, for saying that. That is such a great idea of updating the design. I love the idea of him having wooden planks on his wings. Makes him like just unthreatening enough.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's just reacting to what you're drawing. So it's and because I was curious too, like just naturally seeing it come together. It's like what materials would be in that world? of Boulder and Fleet.
Right. I mean, it's pretty. I left myself a lot of wiggle room. Like Dan Mishkin recently described my taste in stories is like having a lot of weird, random stuff happen and not feel obliged to explain its logic to the audience. And he meant it as a compliment because we were working on a pitch together where there was some element of the story like that, and I told him how much I enjoyed it, and he's like, "Yeah, I kind of wrote that for you." Like when you think about like in the Boulder and Fleet story, Mining for Trouble, it's like 4 little girls who are made of rock and eat precious metal show up, and they're like, "Hi, we're the bad guys." And it's like, well, what's that all about? What are the mineral people all about? I don't really give you any backstory on it. It's like, yep, there's mineral people, and they eat metal, and like that's all you need to know because that gives us our reason for these guys to be there. And now we can just enjoy how fun their characters are. So, you know, I wrote it loosey-goosey that way.
It's, yeah, I guess it could, you know, I can appreciate how it could be represented as loosey-goosey, but to me it feels like in a way, a calculated storytelling move because it frees you from too many prior judgments. And so now you can see the characters for what, you know, how they present themselves and their actions in this world. And there's just more discovery. So like I might have assumptions about metal and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I haven't thought about people eating it. That's wild. And then, yeah, now I'm engaged in imagining and buying in without as much extra, I don't know. Yeah, it feels like a freeing thing, as opposed to, you know, sticking with too many, like strictly with tried and true genre conventions.
Yeah.
Or specifically extreme fantasy or extreme reality and whatever. It's like it seems like a clever hybrid, and it frees you up as a writer.
Well, my logic, at any rate, I don't know. I appreciate the what would that be? Not justification,
Analysis?
but rationalization. I'm going to call it rationalization. You can call it analysis. But like my thinking is that the internal logic of the world will reveal itself through the writing of the stories. And I'll trust myself that if I hem myself in at any point, I'll live with being hemmed in. So there is a rough first draft at adding this guy. Oops, where did my pen go? This guy with this creature. And leading to that. Rough draft. There we go. But yeah, I love the idea of the wooden panels with like the records of his quote unquote accomplishments, and now I got a friend for. I've got my 2 mercenaries turned into animals. Oh, Nate Marcel is in the chat saying Gandalf still smokes in The Hobbit. Reading that to your kids right now. Yeah, you know, but I just feel like this is. First of all, I'm only talking about my own stories. I am not making a judgment call on how anybody else operates in their stories. I'm not going to tell other people what to say. But I also feel like The Hobbit has the context of like a lot of us know it's a really old story, and it's like a very big fantasy story. So I don't know. It feels like there's a little bit more latitude there, but that's just me. And again, I'm only speaking for my own particular books. I'm just talking about my comfort level now.
And it's also like really pre many things, right? So it's like it's pre like strongly proliferated reading genres. And so I mean you really there's a I don't know how intentional. I honestly haven't read a lot about the behind the scenes of The Hobbit, other than I hear people chat about it from time to time because it's such a big and influential work. But like, was the purpose? So I guess The Hobbit was more about was intended to be more all ages. Is that true?
Yeah,
Versus
I
Lord of the
believe
Rings.
so.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of smoking in The Hobbit too. I mean, there's a lot.
Okay.
And a lot of talking about smoking.
Sure.
Like, do not like if you are a smoker and you decide that you want to quit, don't read any of Tolkien's books for like a couple years, because he makes it sound so romantic.
Yeah.
But yes, I feel like it's a different thing. Also, Tolkien, like has like horrific battles. Like they're lopping off orc heads left and right. And like I would not feel comfortable writing that for any of my stories. So again, we're just talking about my personal tastes here. Troy, Shadowing Tronics in the chat, also brings up another interesting point with regard to the wooden planks on Torpedo Black's wings. He says, also to remember, you have to be able to redraw this numerous times during the story. Very good point. I feel like I still got a little bit to work out with how Torpedo Black's wing joints work and how he's going to affix them to his wings. I've got to do a little bit more thinking about that, but I think I've got a good start with this.
Yeah, because because as far as how a bird, it's more of a ball joint, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't. Yeah. Well, but it's like an elbow on that particular joint. I'm looking at like the first main joint. If you go from the feather tip to the first joint on the wing, going back towards his body, and that's more like an elbow, isn't it? So that wouldn't, or is no. I got to look at some more pictures of birds. I don't know. Well,
and I'm not trying to be a bird anatomy cop by any means here, because the bird I drew the most frequently doesn't represent a penguin in almost any way.
I'm also going to do one last little iteration, because I noticed that I really like how the swift has that little itty bitty beak. And
what a severe look in that bird's eye. Holy moly. Like, I know that's, anthropomorphism, but like, wow.
Yeah.
The bird's up to, that bird means business in that photo. Look at that bird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't mess with that bird.
So I like the idea of making his beak like a little bit tinier. There we go. And
that really makes this character look more innocent. Instead of like loud and jockish, it's almost it's a few notches.
He would laugh like Randy from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Ooh, Randy,
the little puppet who always gave Pee-wee a hard time.
Yeah, how did he laugh? I'm not trying to.
He did that.
Oh. Okay. Gotcha. Yep, I can totally see and hear that. Okay.
So. Okay.
Nice. Okay.
All right. I'm gonna hit save on that because I'm gonna hang on to that. Okay. Well, cool. Let's take a break then. How about that?
That sounds awesome. Good timing.
Stop projecting and and see, this is another reason to like sketch with your community, because Troy in the chat says future line of the comic. How does such a small beak contain such a loud mouth? Yeah, right. So like the cool thing about like if you go to like drawing events like drink and draws or any kind of like public drawing event in your area, is that when you're drawing alongside of people, they give you really, really great ideas, like making the wooden plank wings and coming up with ideas for lines of dialogue in the story. And I'm going to keep all of that. So, okay, we're going to take a 1.5-minute break, and then Rob is going to do the same thing with one of his characters. So let's watch him draw and me do color commentary. But before we do that, we have to thank some people who make the show possible. Oh, man, I got to get my music up for this. Those people happen to be the folks who support us on Patreon. Yes, patreon.com/leanintoart is the website. What is it? It's a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. You could say, hey, I believe in Jerzy and Rob. I believe in what they do and what they make. I want to help make it more sustainable. Well, how do I do it? Well, you go to patreon.com/leanintoart, and you can pledge a monthly pledge, and it can be as little as $1 a month. And if enough people do it, then Rob and I can make part of our living off of doing the show, maybe make more stuff for the show. And I want to thank 5 people who have been doing exactly that by supporting us. First up, Kelly Ishikawa. You can find Kelly on Twitter at Kelly of Ishikawa. Thank you, Kelly. And Tim F. Thank you for believing in us and what we do. Kim Holm. Kim Holm you can find on Twitter at Denungerherholm. We will link to it in the show notes. He does Free Art Fridays where he draws all sorts of really cool stuff and gives it away. And Catherine Sugru. You can find Catherine on Twitter at Cat Soogroo, S-O-O-G-R-O-O, like Gru the Wanderer. Thank you, Catherine. And finally, Robert Clemens Jr. at Rob Clemens Jr. on Twitter. Thank you so much, Robert, for believing in us and what we do. And you can join them at patreon.com/leanintoart, where you'll find all the shows we make, including the extra leans, the shows we record just for people who support us on Patreon. Those posts are not public. and behind the wall. And then that post becomes an open mic post where you can talk about whatever you want in a safe place where only fellow leaners hang out. Once again, it's patreon.com/leanintoart. Thank you to everybody who has been supporting us there. It means a lot to us.
It really does. Thank you so much.
All right, time for some more music to take us into the next part of the show. I'm choosing. Here we go. Repeating from last week, Galaxy Rangers theme. Good show. Had a lot of cool computer animation before computer animation was mainstream in kids' cartoons. Okay, time for you to draw, my friend, and for me to talk.
Well, let's do that screen share thing. All right. Got a screen share going. Got a few different possibilities. So I don't really, sort of a big creative project I have going on right now is one of my side projects, which is the Two Pizza Team, both comic and video game, right? And during the Inktober Creative Challenge, I did design a bunch of different characters that are meant to populate this world. And then some of them, really as a quick follow-up to their initial designs, like maybe they would be pretty approachable to throw into a, into like the next mini comic as I start to explore the more about the, more about the characters in the world, because that's one of the purposes of me doing the mini comics, starting out with the one I did last year, which is Two Pizza Team in a situation called No Trash Talk. But I started moving the pizzas into being animated and importing into Unity and all this stuff. And so then new constraints arise, like, it'd be nice to reuse animations and have some efficiency there. And so with the with the pizzas, they're kind of round here, and they've got essentially these sort of stick figure, sort of anatomical arms and legs, right? With basically 3 fingers, and then simplified. It's very, very obviously somewhat humanoid anatomy, but pretty darn simple. And so I would like it if I could somehow take other characters in this world and then have them share the same animation.
Oh, yeah.
Now that gets complicated when you look at this big old alien thing.
Yep.
So that's kind of my challenge here. Is exploring a different shape. Like how can I communicate an alien with less squiggly pointy things and stuff, or have them fit within roughly a similar structure. Like think of it as a bone structure where here's a bone, there's a bone, there's a bone, there's a bone, and then essentially I have I can have 2 bones here, but bone, it's not very anatomical, but good enough for interesting, lively movement in the game, right? So the game is not meant to convey high.
You're not doing Pinocchio the game, right? Like
Right,
Pinocchio
yeah.
the Disney film, yeah. Like or like Cuphead, where it has like that 1930s animation style.
Yeah. So like fewer frames of animation, but life and some expressiveness and specific motions, right?
Yep.
And then maybe.
And so you're kind of thinking about like making a design that maps itself, a variety of designs that all map to the same skeleton or to a fewer number of skeletons, so that you can get away doing more with less.
Yeah.
I think of you're familiar with that RoboForce toy line that I illustrate the comic for, right?
Yeah, I am.
The Glios toy line that it's a part of, like all of the like 100 and Max Zero and Sentinel and oh gosh, who else is in the line already? Wrecker. They are all made of the exact same parts. You just recombobulate them in different ways, and you get different robots. He was designed as like a modular, like Lego system essentially, so that like if you have max and 3 extra parts, you've got 100, right? And I think that that was like a really brilliant way to get like a lot out of very, very well, relatively less, right? Because of cost of plastic and so on. So I think about that too.
Well,
So
yeah,
you could do
molds
some
and
really,
manufacturing. So yeah, they're being shaped by physical toy production as design constraints. That's very interesting. Yeah, so I could. So essentially, there are I could actually. This character is not that far off necessarily. Like honestly, there's if I look at there's 2 sections of the arm, 2 sections, and then it's just a matter of like what is the 2 parts of the body, right? So then I don't know, but maybe this isn't as far off as I initially thought, but I do want to have the like I am not going to be able to explore this as quickly as you, Jersey, just heads up.
in fairness, I did do a little bit of grabbing images ahead of time, and like I decided what bird he was going to be before I showed up to the show. So
Sure.
I guess I should have done fair warning and asked you to do the same. What are you working in? What app is this?
Oh yeah. So I'm working in it's Autodesk Sketch.
Oh,
Yeah. So and I'm just playing around. It's like how far off would this be? Part of it is I think maybe bringing the head in so it's a little bit more central on the body would probably make sense. So alien shape in this region, but yet not as like, anteater elephant like, which is just a shape I like to draw. So like, yeah. So
there's a little bit of pick wing vey going on here on the head shape, but yes,
I draw pointy things a lot. So I think I might hop to a different character because I can see how I think my primary thing is getting this head to fit a little bit more within just being slightly a little bit more constrained. And I'm open to other thoughts too before I hop to another character. But
well, I'm wondering if we could just dig at one idea real quick, because as you're playing around with this and you're letting the constraint inform the design, I can see younger Jersey getting very annoyed at the thought of I have to change the design to meet the constraints. That sucks. This is not a good job. This is what we call a lousy job. What do you think about that? I mean, how do you feel about like that balancing, that going back and forth between like the creative aspect, or well, I shouldn't say creative aspect, the part that we associate with creativity versus the part that we associate with ruthless economy?
Okay, so ruthless economy, you could think of it as well. You could think of it as fine art versus commercial art or whatever, right? I mean, you have the ability to express and convey message and an emotion with maybe even more so with constraints. Because within those constraints, so you can basically choose to frame how you look at it, right? You can say like, I don't like my constraints. Okay, well, then maybe you could explore the possibility of more complex character or more types of characters. Like, okay, so maybe there is a large headed character type that has a more complex skeleton, right? And then that can but this means more time, right? And can you afford that? So it's kind of like, I mean, you have a budget. What can you what can you accomplish with what you can afford? So that, yeah, and that may not feel great, I guess, but But then you probably can look at and be inspired by others who have embraced pretty severe constraints,
Yeah.
especially in video games. And you look at so you can have a character that's literally like, so a lot of game engines would reduce this alien to like,
You're drawing a box with like 3 points on its top, and then like 2 angry circle eyes, and 2, what are those, like little like teeth coming out of the bottom? And we're
oh,
seeing,
those are feet. So
oh, those are feet. Oh, I see. And then yes, so it's like, think of it took this dragon type character. I should have been describing this all along. So like this hunched over alien type character that you simplify, when it has like it's covered in bristling in points, and you can see like a bunch of like ribbing on its chest, and it's got like pincer claws for arms, and it's got like these crazy multi-jointed legs. And now you're showing how a game engine might render it all the way down to essentially a Lego brick with a couple of pointy teeth sticking out of the middle, 2 big angry circle eyes, 2 little nubs for legs coming off the bottom, then 2 short stick arms with like crab claws, and a few points on the top of its head and on the back of its, what we would associate with its neck.
yeah,
And then
so,
three little like lines on the chest to indicate like the ribbing of the scales.
so these characters in this situation often have instead of frame-based animation where there's, everything is separate drawings, right? So like this character can have a lot of life in it if it's just animated with transformations over time. So it can go, essentially, you can make it a little bit wider, right, and then a little bit narrower. And if this is looping over time, now you have kind of a breathing look. And if you have it bouncing a little bit, right, just a little bit up and down, not much, all of a sudden there's a lot of energy in that, right? This character is sort of breathing and ready to hop, right? And then when you move, that's when it's sort of in its standstill, and you didn't literally have to produce any extra drawings to get that impression of this character. And then when it's moving, right, you could just skew it a little bit, right? And this is done in code, not as a separate drawing.
Wow.
Right? So all of a sudden, all you've done is think about a transformation in like whatever, Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint, and you've just skewed this character, and now it happens to be moving across the screen, in the x-axis or y-axis or whatever. And then maybe even as it moves, as opposed to standing still, it's like breathing. As it moves, it could be doing a little bit of a hop, right? And so then you have this regular, it's transitioning over X or Y, but then in a predictable repeating pattern, you're in code making it hop a little bit, right? You didn't have to do any extra frames.
So what you did is like you took this Lego brick looking creature and you skewed it like a Photoshop filter, transform, a skewed transformation where it becomes like sort of like a parallelogram, but all of its features skewed with the shape of its body. And now I think this is fascinating because like when you simplify, this is like part of what informs how we design things. When you simplify it that much, I feel like that kind of skew transformation and then doing that in code and having them bounce a little bit all in code without having to do new drawings, I think that works. But I bet if you took your original design and did that skew on it and had it bounce and it didn't move its arms or legs, like there were no new drawings, I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
So it's funny that like a really simple design from a game design standpoint gives you more flexibility for like asset use than say a more complex design.
It really does. And so, I mean, so some of that can just come from experience where you're like, you could say, I don't want to make the trade-off. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And then you see what that's like. And if you can afford it and keep it going on your project, perfect. It's not really a constraint for you.
Yeah.
So
you're going for something with like a little bit more complexity where it's going to be some
I
frame-based
wonder if there's something
animation.
in between these two stages, though. This is what I would like to figure out.
Yeah, something between your Lego brick guy and your fully articulated animated guy with a skeleton.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. So this is how Rob's going to close it out, is by finding the middle ground between those stages.
So, so could be different. Oh gosh,
Now,
so I can just.
Rob is sketching over top of his initial sketch.
I wonder if I do.
Try to simplify it down even more to find that middle ground between what looks like a aardvark alligator lizard dragon with claw hands.
So then,
Now it's starting to look a little Invader Zim-ish.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, so you start to embrace same constraints, you end up coming up with similar inventions.
Sure.
So
he's still going to have what look like articulated legs with joints.
let's see.
Actually, this is looking kind of cool, Rob.
Oh, thanks.
I think this is a neat exercise, is this idea of trying to find the extremes of... Oh, and this reminds me of like a thing that Flint Dilley said that he and the writers did when they were working on cartoons for Sunbow, is like you'd come up with like the obvious pitch, the clever pitch, and then the wild pitch for a story. And often the wild pitches would get picked up. The wild pitch meaning the one that's like totally off the wall, totally bananas. Nobody's going to want to do this story, and that would be the one that would get made. I like this idea of like looking at the full spectrum of cartoony to more rendered and finding out what, where the sweet spot lies. I'm also thinking of Jake Parker's 8-minute warm-up challenge. You've seen this, right? Where you draw the same thing 6 times, once at like 4 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 5 seconds. And I do this in my classes, and my students are always surprised to discover that, oh, hey, the 2-minute one actually I like better than the 4-minute one, right? Like when I'm under more pressure and I'm drawing quickly, I get results that I like better. So like taking the design and drawing it in a variety of levels of cartooniness.
Okay.
Oh, you added 2 extra arms to this guy as you simplified him down. Now explain that.
Well, I'm trying to still communicate alienness. So it's like, how do I combine simple yet alien?
Right.
Because if you go simple, it's we recognize faces well. We recognize the something that has 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, and whatever. And so you can anthropomorphize pretty fast, and that's the challenge with an alien, I think, is to have the an otherness, but similar enough, right?
Similar enough, yeah. Yep. And this would be a situation where you would be essentially just doubling the number of arms on the skeleton frame, so it could still map itself.
Sure.
You wouldn't be creating that much new stuff. Do you remember I forget what game it was. There was some game with like 3-legged aliens in it, right? And it's like that. It was really cool looking, but now you've got a whole new problem. You've got like an asymmetrical creature, right?
Yeah, that's interesting too. That's another interesting approach. Clone 1 leg. So, you could come off. There's clone extra arm or extra leg. Actually, that's a good idea. I like that, the extra leg. So I wonder, so in reusing the animation, essentially just throwing another leg in there, which it could be just a copy of the farther away leg.
Does that add any extra complexity when it comes to figuring out how it will animate?
So in the app I'm using right now, it's Creature by, I think, Kestrel Moon Studios, and it would create some work because you need distinct names. Like all these parts need different names.
Oh.
So it's some extra work. It's interesting. Yeah, some extra work, but also some reuse, but not perfect reuse. So that's a puzzle. So This might cost a little bit more than I'd prefer in effort and
I
time.
see. Whereas like doubling the eyes would just be like repeat the like
Exactly.
here's the eyes.
That's all
They're
within
named
the same head bone. Yep.
right.
So
Unless you found a way to make one leg, and then you're just repeating the leg 3 times. Right.
so if I deleted a leg and then centered it, right? And so then so if the alien had let's see. So if the alien essentially had a interesting. So I could turn it into a tail or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that
But now
would
it doesn't
be,
map onto your humanoid skeleton at all.
it doesn't it well, it does for the arms and the head, right? But then and the torso. It's just that the legs, I might be able to have this be the upper leg, the lower leg, right? And then the foot.
Okay.
So it's just essentially cloning the original animation and then deleting a leg, but then yeah, it would require tweaking. It wouldn't go 1-to-1 because those different loops, once the skeleton was animated, the loops would be doing really weird stuff. I bet it look funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But so what you've done, just to describe it for the audio, is you eliminated the 3 legs and made one big like Jabba the Hutt style tail coming off the bottom. So it's like more like a snake creature now. And
Yep.
you divided that snake end into 3 parts: upper leg, lower leg, and foot. But is there a justification for making this a separate skeleton in the system? Like, are there any ghosts that can show up in this thing, or like other eel creatures or something like
That's
that?
a great thought. Yeah, exactly. So you end up with essentially 2 clusters of animation effort, right? And as long as there's a sweet spot of the designs of the game are pretty harmonious with that, then great. There's enough reuse. I could see justifying that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Especially because all this upper torso stuff would be reusable. So things like being hit and attacking, or like how an arms would sort of behave during a jump. All those would be reusable. But it's the distinct for the snake / ghost shaped creatures would end up. Yeah, they would end up needing their own separate lower animation in their instances.
But I mean, this is the kind of cost benefit analysis you could do while you're doing the design, saying like, well, this thing is just going to be, I'm only building half of a new skeleton that can be attached to what I've already built. Then, and can it be used in a variety of ways? Then that kind of, that kind of thinking can go a long way to helping you make more choices in your designs. You know, I think if I can offer a closing thought on this section before we go to our next break, is I just saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Did you see it yet, Rob?
I did.
I really liked it. I liked it a lot. And I was talking about the movie with friends afterwards, and like somebody took issue with the fact that like there was this thematic point about like leaps of faith. You just got to take a leap of faith. You have to dive in. And they were like, well, is that really a good thing to tell children, just to jump in and do something? And I was like, well, you know, as again, somebody who teaches a lot of comics classes, I noticed that there is an argument to be made for the act of throwing lines down engages the brain in the activity of doing the thing. And sometimes you can freeze yourself up by thinking about, oh, what if it's not right? What if it's not good? Well, it probably won't be at first. You'll have to make it good. And the only way you're going to be able to make it good is by throwing those first lines down. And just start the thing is like 30% of the fight, right?
Mm-hmm. And okay. There's very little advice that applies to all universal situations, right? So having a strong theme and a story truth that resonates well with it, that's some pretty. I think you've accomplished your work as a writer. If you pull that off.
Yeah.
And then as far as applying it, a leap of faith. Yeah, it's the the small calculated risk of taking action on something that you want to do, especially in like the stakes of just general creative work. Psh, yeah, should be leaping your butt off.
All right, so this thing is taking shape. Now there is a fifth eye.
Wait, I'm just testing the idea that, well, are more eyes always better?
Well, I also like the idea of odd-numbered things, right? Like 3 legs. You know, don't do 6 eyes, do 5 eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shadowing Troy in the chat is asking, like, what would happen if you did like a coiled up tail, like Coily from Cubert, like that springy snake.
Interesting.
And then would that have application in other character ideas, right? So,
yeah, I think so. Like, so let's see, coily. Yep.
yeah. So now you're drawing like the tail coiling around to create like a spring-like look underneath the alien.
Yeah. Then around and then around. Yeah, I have to do a few iterations on this so it doesn't look like a poo emoji, but you know.
Yeah, I guess it is starting to take a little bit of that shape. And then I guess like another question to ask to like sort of wrap this up is who is the audience? Who are you designing this creature to appeal to and connect with?
Let's see. It's let's see. I have not tightly genred Two Pizza Team, but it's definitely probably what do they call it? Like ages 10 and up kind of, you know, that's not early reader, that's, you know, like, it's what I consider a convenient all age thing, where someone who's willing to buy into the fantasy and fun of a world where, you know, pizzas are dealing with aliens that are for some reason really concerned about the neighborhood that they live in, and
Right.
in all these other circumstances. So yeah, I mean it's lighthearted fantasy.
So an alien who shows up who bounces on a coiled tail wouldn't be that out of place there. Like,
No, it wouldn't.
I guess that's another thing I think about, right? Like when I was working on my design, I was like, okay, well, this is a fantasy world where there is some science, but I don't want to get into like super slick, polished science fiction, super tech. So, you know, making the armor out of wood or something else made a lot of sense to me. And conversely, I wonder if there's a danger in using the tail design like a snake, if it might look too creepy, right? Because like Shadowing in the chat also brought up the character of Medusa from Clash of the Titans, right? Who is like a pretty menacing monster. Do you remember that character?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean Medusa from Greek mythology is definitely a more, you know, severe and high stakes. I mean, she has like snakes for hair, right?
Right. And in the Harryhausen animation, she actually had a snake body. Like her lower half was all snake too.
Yep.
And she had that rattle that was always going.
Yeah, snake body. Yep. That's pretty scary. But I don't think five-eyed alien is the equivalent scary of even this, you know, super rough, you know, early drawing of Medusa, right?
Right.
You know, because you have more, like you're taking realistic human anatomy, both in torso and head, right? But then throwing in these other grotesque things of like, oh, you know, snake lower torso, snake hair, and then what she does. I mean, she turns you to stone. So that's a big deal. This I don't know. This alien with an agenda does not turn you to stone. So
right.
that's lower stakes, I think, on a few levels, but totally worth pointing out because symbols. So symbols can, like, I would say, like, that could work in this character's favor of, like, there's high stakes because it's there's some snakish element of, like, uh-oh, snakes, that's dangerous, it's hinting at danger. But this is a pretty soft snake lower torso, right?
Yep.
More huggable.
Yep. It's chubbier. It's more like a slug, like, again, like evoking like the Jabba the Hutt kind of like lower part of the body. If it was more elongated, like another character I think of, which I don't know how many people here are going to remember him, but Saragar from Alien Legion by Larry Stroman and Bill Mantlo. And like his snake lower half was like really sleek and long and like curled all over the. It didn't really curl; it like sort of bent all over the place. Totally much different look. It was like very dynamic snake body, which is not what this guy is. This guy is definitely more in like the cute range.
And that's part of the taste too. Is I enjoy combining a little bit of danger and a lot of cuteness.
Yep. Very cool. That was a fun walk through a bunch of different options for a guy. Are you feeling any strong feelings towards any version that you did?
I think I like where the progression was going, and I would like to explore that further. So this version with 2 legs, I think there's something there. I think exploring the amount of work, like just doing like a playing around in creature with a doodle that has a snake tail, I think it'd be worthwhile too. And because part of it is testing an assumption of, like, that sounds like a lot of work, but maybe it's not as bad, because maybe I only need like a bare minimum of animations, where like characters that have a lot more jobs in the game, that they may need maybe multiple action animations, multiple attack animations and whatnot, where this character maybe only needs 1 attack animation. And yep.
Okay.
So ways to lower the cost.
All right. Well, you want to do final thought in a minute?
Yeah, I do. That was fun.
That was fun. It's been too long since we've done some live drawing on the show. Okay, so final thought. Had an idea about maybe like trying to, do some thinking, linking, reflecting on what we just did and why we do this stuff that we do. Right?
Do some thinking, linking. There's somewhere in there that's a very lean into art-esque mug or shirt.
Thinking, linking. I borrowed that from a teaching friend. That was like a session that she did when she was teaching a class. Like you would go through the experience of going through the class, and then you had a thinking, linking session where you think about what happened and you link it to your real world experience.
Oh, that's so cool. I'd love it. So who do we credit for this?
Mary Jo Finney, who
Mary
is
Jo, Mary Jo,
my Jedi Master. All right. Well, how about in about a minute and a half or so, we're going to wrap up with our final thoughts on this and think about what we did. But before we do that, we got to thank some more people who make this show possible. And those people happen to be us. We make stuff, and then we think about the stuff we make and bring those thoughts into this show that we do every week. And the thing that I hope you will check out of mine, the thing that I make is a webcomic called Amazon Academy, which I make with my friend Dan Mishkin. And the page 23B just dropped, wrapping up chapter 1 of the series. Comics actually go on break for a couple months while I deal with some deadlines and various things going on in my life. But the reason I'm pointing at it now is that if you sign up for the email list, we have a special surprise for the people who subscribe in the email list only. And you get to it by going to AmazonAcademy.net. What is it about? I didn't even say what it's about. Well, here we go. Let's just read from the About section on the website. The Amazons of Legend are no myth. Discovered by the outside world, they've opened up a boarding school where the Amazon girls and American girls can study and play together, make new friends, and reveal their true selves, because every girl has secrets. And It's so yes, it's action adventure storytelling at a girls' school where magical creatures like unicorns can show up. Let me see if I can go back a page. Yeah, we can have not unicorns, Pegasus. There was a Pegasus in the first chapter, and Amazon warriors and high school kids. Right there, they all are together with the school handyman Festus. So AmazonAcademy.net
awesome.
is where you can go.
It's really beautiful work.
Oh,
And
thanks.
It's super cute to see that that the Pegasus being carried by that massive character.
Yeah, this big tough guy who's
Yeah.
like being really sweet to the horse. Like it's so funny when you work on these kinds of things collaboratively. In the original sketch of the page, I had Festus looking much more stern, like he's like hefting up, like I gotta get this horse back to its stable. But then when I read the dialogue that Dan wrote, where he's like, "Poor thing, got spooked right out of your pen, didn't you?" I was like, No, he needs to look totally different. And so like I cocked his head sideways, and now he's looking at the horse. Like it gave him a gentler expression on his face, despite the fact that he's using all this power to lift up a baby winged horse. Yes, AmazonAcademy.net. Rob, you make a game.
I do. And I mean, you might be looking for a mellow puzzle game, something to wind down, or something to share with young ones in your life who might have access to like a tablet or small phone device and whatnot. Sometimes folks share their phones with their kids and whatnot. And if you're looking for a really fun game to do that with, This Panda Needs You is perfect for all those situations. And what the situation is, you got this cute little panda in the bamboo forest encountering puzzles. The puzzles are stackable patterns of blocks and shapes and colors, right? And they stack. It's a physics puzzle, right? And everything's fine actually because the panda shows up, the puzzle's all stacked, except it's not fine. A little cloud shows up, knocks it all down for some reason, right? I mean, it's nothing personal. The cloud just is doing what it does. And well, now it's up to you to help this panda put things back to the way they should be. And there's over 50 levels. Things get a little more, they get progressively more and more challenging, like, more complex patterns, more blocks to deal with and all that. And every 10 levels, the panda takes a break and goes back into its little house. So it's a nice cue actually too. If you're like, you're having someone play this game and it's like the panda goes home to take a nap. Oh, let the panda rest. We don't have to keep playing. It's good to take breaks. So you can learn more about it and check out the links for all these platforms where it's available for. It's available on your iOS devices for iPhones and iPads. It's on Android phones and tablets. So you have, just search for it in your favorite app store. But if you're looking for quick links, you can find all that at this-panda.com, including for Windows and Mac desktops.
And if you did already purchase it and you haven't done this yet, a great thing you could do to help more people find the game is give it a review. Tell people that why they should play it too, so more people will find it. If you are here because you like the way we think about stuff and you don't care so much about the stuff we make, fair enough. This show is a thing that we make too. And it is an encapsulation of the way we think about things. And there's more things like that at leanintoart.com/workshops, where you can download self-contained videos at a price of your choosing, even free. You can get them for free. Just download them and enjoy them. Hours and hours of workshop material that we have used in the field, as they say, in real life. If you are watching this video on YouTube, giving it a thumbs up right now helps more people find the show. And if you're listening to it in a podcatcher, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, giving it a 5-star review wherever you listen to it helps more people find the show as well. And we thank everybody who has been doing that. It means a lot. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Final thought. Take a couple minutes to think about what we just did. What kind of problems were we addressing when we were going through those design iterations?
Well, I mean, it's refining an idea and taking another look at it, and in some cases, I guess in both cases, there's you have a character and you have a circumstance that they need to be maybe adapted to or refined to be even more fit for that situation. And that takes iteration. But I wonder, and that's what we did in both situations, right? There's some iteration on a design. But then I'm wondering, Jerzy, how long do you keep that up? Like, how many iterations make sense to do?
It depends, of course. I mean, because like now that we can talk about a whole nother range of constraints. How much time do I have, right? Do I have like 2 weeks to do the pre-design on this project? Then we're only going to get a couple of iterations. Characters like the Captain Seriously project, I remember doing like 20 odd character designs and then whittling it down to like the core 5 or 10, whatever it wound up being. Certain things like the cover for Science Comics Rockets, Ann and I iterated the cover 22 times before we landed on what we eventually did. Character design like Torpedo Black has been, this would be like the 5th or 6th time I've designed the character. And what drives the iteration, if I have the resources to explore it to my heart's content, what drives it for me is, who is it for? How do I know that it's doing, let me put it this way. The way I know that the design is doing its job is if it is answering problems that the person it is intended for has, right? So in the case of Torpedo Black as a character in The Front Rebirth, the graphic novel, that story is not addressing anything that a 10 to 13-year-old is dealing with, right? That story is for much older kids, and I learned that only after I wrote the darn book. So I want to write stuff for an even younger audience. And my thoughts on how power is explored in storytelling has changed a lot. So there's the problem that I have. My tastes have changed, and the types of stories I want to do have changed. I think there's a germ of a good idea in those 4 mercenaries. There's something I think that's really fun to play with, but it's inappropriate. They, as they are now, are inappropriate for the audience that I want to serve. So how do I make this more approachable to the people that I want to serve? Well, let's put them in my funny animal comic, where it is a gentler story that is meant for that age group. So for me, that's how I know I'm getting close, is when I'm thinking about who the target audience is. Boulder and Fleet itself as a project began as an experiment where I said, what would, if I came up with a story from scratch and I made it for my wife, what would it be? Right? And that is what I landed on, Bear and this Bird, right? I didn't even know I wanted to do a funny animal comic at the time. I had no idea, right? So, yeah, that a lot of I don't want to get down a rabbit hole about commercial art, but there is like that informs a lot of my approach, right? Is who am I making this for? But part of the audience is me too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think a fine artist who, I don't know. Like, I honestly, like, I can't tell the difference because of a fine artist who is participating in a structure that supports their living somehow as a commercial artist. So I don't know what to do with that.
Right. Yeah.
But,
I feel like that's on a whole other track that we could go down, but we don't have time, and we don't need to. It's not the scope of this conversation.
Not trying to open a new can of worms there. But I think that was a good exploration, and thank you, Jerzy.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. I feel like we did a podcast. Mm-hmm. Thanks to everybody who showed up for the live stream, hung out and interacted with us. And thanks to everybody for downloading, watching, and listening. We record the show weekly on Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central. We stream it live on YouTube, and then we collect it as a podcast at patreon.com/leanintoart and leanintoart.com. Until next time, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com, and I'm Rob Stenzinger, also on Instagram.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.
Okay, I'm shutting off the stream. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.